We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AVRant. I'm Tom Andrew, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AVRant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. And if you're looking at the YouTube video, you can tell we've been having technical issues this morning. It's just been craziness. We're starting like half an hour late. We're going to rush and see what we can do this week. It probably won't make the full 2 hours.
Yeah, sorry guys. I was using my laptop.
Yeah,
it was fine, and then I moved it to a different room to set up for the podcast. And a blue screen flashed up that says your computer has had an issue, it needs to restart, and then it restarted, and then it won't come back up. I have tried everything I can think of, and it won't come up. So my desktop, which, let's be honest, I was not sure would load up because I wasn't sure it hadn't been flooded. My son took it apart and was like, it doesn't look like it's got any water in here. I'm like, okay. I booted it up for the first time in 6 months. It's just been the 6-month anniversary of that flood, by the way. That just came and went not that long ago. So I booted this thing up, and if you've ever not turned on your computer in 6 months, it's sort of like a Gen Xer trying to get out of bed after a long weekend with his or her friends in town, and they've gone out a little bit too often.
Sure.
Because it creaks. It's creaking.
I am fully expecting there could be interruptions in this. We're still using Skype at the moment, which is also being completely decommissioned at the end of the month. So this is just going to be flawless, going to be perfect, but there it is.
It does mean I may have lost, if I can't get the computer to boot back up again, which I might. I mean, right now what I'm doing is letting it open, like just leaving it open and letting it the battery completely die. Okay. Because, a lot of times, for whatever reason, that helps. Yeah. So I'm going to let that keep doing its thing over there. And for right now, I'm no camera.
Nope.
We did have a listener who sent me a laptop, but again, it would be in the exact same situation. I'd have to
hasn't been set up yet.
It hasn't been set up yet. It's been doing other stuff, and I have plans for that laptop actually when we move into a house. But it's or get back into our house, however things work out. But we are doing what we can. So here we are. Anything exciting going on with you before we move on? I need to go get some. I've been so focused on this, I don't have any drinks in here. I need drinks.
Yeah, well, no one will notice if you slip out the door, not even I, because I can't even see you on camera. Nothing exciting health-wise. I am improved over last week, but definitely not 100% yet. But it's at least going in the right direction. And I finally had a proper meal last night, which was kind of nice after 2 weeks. So yeah, there we go. That's how things going on my end.
Wife's also been really weirdly sick. I say weirdly because she never had a fever. Okay. Or really, she just started coughing, and it's just gotten progressively worse. And she keeps going back to the doctor, and the doctor is just like, "Yep, okay, here, take these drugs." And she's like, "Well, those don't really do anything," but she takes them because she's like, "Well, we don't think it's a bacteria, but here's some antibiotics just in case, and here's a cough suppressant, and here's this." And then a week later, she goes back. She's going on week 3 with this thing. And she's now on an even stronger antibiotic and an even stronger, because the last one apparently didn't do enough, steroid. And she's got an inhaler and all this. It's keeping her up at night. It's like a real thing.
Yeah, that's a clear just throw everything at the wall type of thing, because if they're doing all that, it means they don't know if it's bacteria or virus or possibly even something else. They're just every type of treatment.
Hopefully she feels better soon, because believe me, nobody's happy when mom's not happy. I don't know how your relationships go, but there's certain people that it's true of all of us, I suppose, no matter who you are in the relationship. If one person's ill and can't get better, it's really hard for the rest of us as well. Yeah. So I'm hoping she gets better and feels better. I'm glad that you seem to be on the mend.
Yeah. It's going a little bit more slowly than I anticipated, but I guess either this thing is just a little bit stronger because it seems like the bugs are getting stronger these days, or maybe I'm just older and weaker. It could be that too.
So just to kind of keep you updated on what's going on with the house. No word on that yet, but because of, we signed a lease for like 7 months to be here, and it's coming due, and they're like, okay, so your lease is coming due. You need to make a decision on whether or not you're leaving. I'm like, well, we're not leaving.
Okay.
Got no place to go, and rents aren't exactly going down around town.
Right.
So, because we were displaced because of the hurricane, one of the things that they did here is reduced the penalty for breaking your lease.
Okay.
So our penalty is a month instead of 2 or 3 or whatever it normally is. I think it's 2. And we were like, okay, well, is that still the case? Because, I don't know. They could just change their minds and say, well, we did it for that first period, but we're not, you can't have that forever. But they said, no, it's fine. You can have the 1 month. And I've actually had a friend who lived in not this property, but a property that was owned by the same company. And she left it super clean, so they were able to rent it out right away. Okay. And they just said, yeah, since we rented it out right away, here's all your money back.
Oh, good.
So this company, I've been really happy with this situation. So we wouldn't have moved even if we found someplace else for fear of not being in such a good situation. We like the people that we live around. The property is well maintained. There's little activities they have every month or two. It's nice. So we signed a 15-month lease.
Ooh, like additional or total?
Yeah, additional.
Oh,
so,
wow. Okay.
I mean, if we're not, it's the cheapest. I mean, it's not any cheaper than 12 months, but we're like, well, if we're going to sign up for 12 months, you might as well sign up for 15 since we're just going to break it anyways. And we have no idea if 15 months will even be enough. We might still be here after that, the way things are looking. So,
right. Not out of the question.
It's not exactly like the economy in the United States is getting better. I don't know if you've noticed, but things haven't been going great over here. I can't really imagine why. But so we're just gonna maybe have to ride this out for a bit. Yeah. So we're not super happy about the situation, but again, those of you that have been kind of following it, we are just throwing everything at the wall. So we're splitting the lot. We're trying to see there's a new, I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast or not. There's a new like grants that are going around right now in our area for raising your house, like literally picking it 11 feet in the air or more. That's not actually 11 feet. It picks it up to 11 feet from wherever it is. Like that's the flood plain. They want it there. And I was like, let's go 15 just in case. So anyways, so we're applying for that. We're applying, we're of course looking to sell as is if that ever happens, So we've talked to real estate agents, we talked to architects, we're in the process of splitting the lots, which we don't actually ever have to do. We just get permission to do it. And then if we decide to do it, then we can. Yeah. Of course, we have to knock down the house and pull out a big tree and a bunch of other stuff. But we can do it if we want to at that point. So we're doing kind of
everything on the table.
Yeah. Everything's on the table. So no real movement forward there, except just kind of waiting. You keep sending out information and applying for things and getting information back, and them asking for more stuff. So that's we're just kind of going forward until a clear answer to the problem presents itself. Right. I have said
falls out by default.
I've said it before, and if we had just rushed into fixing the house, we would have been back in already. I mean, it would have been done. We could have been back in before the 7 months of this lease. We had contractors all lined up. We had everything ready to go. We had bids ready. We would have been back in, but then we would have been back in and right now be sweating whether or not the house is going to flood again.
Yeah,
in this next hurricane season,
because it wouldn't have been raised. It wouldn't have been any different than it was.
No,
so
been the same. We could have been right back in the same situation. Yeah. So what are we hoping for? We're hoping for a very mild hurricane season. If that happens, then the housing market in that area will get suddenly a lot better as people relax about it. And
because if there was one good year, there'll never be another bad one.
Hey, and then and it's not for us to sell the house as is to somebody
Okay.
and have them fix it up and move into it, which people are doing even right now.
Sure.
They're doing that.
Yeah.
It is to then be able to sell to somebody who's going to either raise it or build new or something along those lines. Because right now the property itself is there's just too much inventory and too many houses that are in the same situation. So we need to just kind of sit tight for a little bit until like I said, a clear answer comes. I mean, I personally don't love the idea of moving back in, even if we raise the house. I just, I don't necessarily want to live in that area.
I get it, yeah. Emotionally, it just, you'll never maybe feel fully at peace at things, right? So.
Yeah, and there's always going to be the daily, weekly, monthly flooding that happens from rains and from high tides and stuff that you have to deal with. It's ruined a bunch of our cars from salt water, and it's just always, there's always going to be a concern on that front. And I would feel better if we could, but if we can raise it and then live in it for a couple of years and then sell it, well, that would be the optimal.
Okay.
I guess one of the solutions that I could definitely live with.
Yeah.
So you're feeling better. What else? Anything going on with you? You want to report?
No,
or you want to go right
we
to
got
where you want
lots
to watch?
to get through home theater wise, so let's crack on. You got a heart out, so let's go.
I'm going to get some coffee, so I'm not listening to you.
Okay. So what did we watch? I watched one movie this week, which was Wicked. This is a very long movie, and it's only part one. This is quite literally going up to the intermission break of the Broadway musical, which in total runs for about 2 hours and 45 minutes, the Broadway musical version. This movie is about 2 hours and 40 minutes long, and it's only the first half. But what they are doing is readapting the original book, Wicked, but using the Broadway songs and using the sort of plot structure, but then expanding it. So if you are familiar with the Broadway musical of Wicked, I mean, it is maybe one of the most Broadway musicals. And I mean, it moves at a clip because it is covering a lot of plot points. And, some of the criticisms of Wicked, the musical, have been that, the relationships change on a dime. They go very, very quickly. But I mean, it uses the song structure to get you through that. You sort of, you get into the musical Broadway play nature of it, and you just sort of accept that, okay, yeah, these people hated each other upon first meeting, but then they have like one thing that turns that around and one good song, and now they're best friends, and you just kind of go with that, and it's kind of easy to suspend your disbelief once you're into the whole Broadway musical type of thing of it. So this movie adaptation, taking a lot of elements from the musical, but then also trying to incorporate more of the things that were in the novel version. It is a bit more grounded, and it obviously takes much more time with those interpersonal relationships, and feels more earned as a result. It feels better earned as far as a movie and a storytelling goes that way. But on the flip side, it loses that just really fast forward momentum of the stage musical version of it, and the songs end up spread out so much more because there's so much more content in between the songs. So it doesn't have that energized, moving really quickly from story beat to story beat type of feeling. It does feel like a better narrative as a movie, but it feels less successful as a musical because of the spreading out and adding more content to it. So we're starring Cynthia Erivo here as the main character, the Wicked Witch of the West, born green, and that seems to be enough to have all the prejudice thrust upon her, and absolutely nobody trusts her just because of the color of her skin, and not subtle in the least in that, of course. But then she comes to the sort of wizarding world, the sort of magical academy of Shiz, and meets up with Galinda, played by Ariana Grande in this movie version. And so the two leads, They are really, really good. They are really, really excellent. I mean, we know both of them are fantastic singers already, but they did an interesting thing here. I don't know if they were actually recording their singing on set, because that's sort of an unusual thing to do, but they did a good job, in my opinion, of very much making it sound like they were singing on set. This didn't have the like completely disjointed voice sound of, oh, well, that was clearly done totally separately in a studio versus what we're seeing on set. I mean, obviously there must have been ADR and re-recording and remixing and remastering after the fact, but it did a good convincing job of it seeming like I was actually watching this person singing for real while it was being performed, quite similar to Les Miserables, the movie version of that, where they very much did record them singing on set in that one for sure. So well done anyway, whatever the mixture was of that. It didn't feel like I'm just hearing a disembodied voice and then somebody lip syncing along on screen, like so often happens in many of these adaptations. Ariana Grande honestly doesn't get enough credit for how good an actress she is. She's known so well as a pop star and such a good singer, but she's a really, really good actress. Now, there is quite a bit of, particularly just in the inflection of her voice, in the timing of the way that she says certain lines, clearly thinking back to Kristen Chenoweth, who was like part of the original Broadway cast, is like, oh yeah, she's definitely taking on some of that. And it's pretty hard to separate when, she sort of pioneered the Broadway role. I thought Cynthia Erivo did a more noticeable job of really making the role her own. And not sort of mimicking what was done in the original Broadway version of it. But yeah, being a movie, like they take advantage of this being a movie and not being a stage play. So much more rapid editing, really good transitions. I really loved a lot of the transitions that they did in this part one of the adaptation. Just having things that you couldn't do on stage and could only really do effectively in a movie, and letting it be a movie version. And yet, now I'm never going to say that I get enough of the ensemble in any movie version of a Broadway musical. I always wish I could see more of the ensemble and more of the dancing in the background. But this does a nice enough job of like letting you see that ensemble performing, because I mean, these are great dancers in the background, great dancers and singers in the background. And it does let you see enough of them that you can at least appreciate how much effort, how much rehearsal must have gone into this production, because there are oneers and intricate camera movements that have to coordinate with sets that are moving, with choreography that's happening at the same time. It's like, this is top-notch production. This took a lot of rehearsal. This took a lot of time and planning to pull this off, and it's done really, really well. I really appreciated that the character of Prince Fiero, played by Jonathan Bailey, who you'd know from Bridgerton. That's where he'd be most famous from, but he clearly is a very professionally trained dancer. And it's not just the thing of like, oh, this is a good actor with a serviceable singing voice who moves well enough that it looks okay. We've seen plenty of that in Hollywood productions of Broadway musicals. It's like, no, you can tell when someone is like really professionally trained as a dancer, which he clearly is, and he is a very good singer. And I'm so glad that he's like famous enough and obviously good looking enough that he can play the role, but he's not like the most famous person they could have cast in that role. They could have cast someone more famous, but I'm really glad that they chose him, because I really appreciate how good a dancer he is in particular. So yeah, as you can tell, I'm very, very pleased with this movie. I will say there is a little bit, though, they used less CGI in this movie than you might imagine. They actually built some really intricate and large sets for a lot of this. So less of the background is CGI than you imagine. The flying monkeys are definitely CGI, and that is obvious, and that's okay. But they did light this entire movie somewhat flat. To make sure that any CGI they did put in there, that you wouldn't have lighting like contradictions. And so it has a little bit of that overly flat CGI type of look to it, which is a shame because they could have shown off the actual production backgrounds and sets and everything that were constructed by lighting it for higher contrast. It was an obvious intentional choice to light everything quite evenly, so you just don't have that contrast of shadow and highlight, even in HDR, that I might have hoped for here. It all looks a little bit flat, a little bit too evenly lit. So that'd be maybe my one criticism of it. But yeah, the effort is there, the talent is there. But yeah, I there were definitely points I was like, okay, pick up the pace a little bit, like get to the next song the way that the Broadway musical does, because they were filling in maybe a little bit more than they needed to, but I do feel like the relationships feel much more earned in this version than they do in the Broadway musical. So overall, well worth a watch. It is emotional. I would have been more into it if I weren't I ended up watching this in 2 parts, so I don't know, it's going to be a 4-part watch for the total thing once the second half comes out later this year, but overall, a big thumbs up for Wicked Part 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't watch anything. We did get a piece of furniture to put a TV on. Now I need the stand for the TV, because the TV that we have was given to us was wall mounted with, and I don't know how this always happens, that you get the part of the wall mount that's on the TV, but not the part of the wall mount that's on the wall.
Like,
what do they do with that? The bracket is
still attached to the back of the TV, but they never took the framing off of the wall itself. Yeah.
Like what do they do with that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. So, anyways, that does mean that we will be ordering something again, that using some of the funds that people had donated when everything got flooded. I'll be using that to replace those funds to replace that stand. And I'm getting one that's good enough that when I get a real TV, the proper size, and they're like, "Why don't you buy the real TV now?" First of all, it doesn't fit in this apartment because it's going to be huge. And second of all, I don't know how big it's going to be. I don't know. I don't know how big it's going to be because I don't know what house I'll be living in. So we will see. And hopefully that means I will be, I've already got the KEF speakers set up, and I've got the AVR ready to go. I need to buy some cables, some speaker cables, but I have HDMI cables. So, but yeah, I don't know how big, where we'll be living, so I can't buy a TV for a space I don't know. We do want to start off with the fact that this is AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. Get your question answered. All you have to do is ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. Go to avrant.com, find our episodes, show notes, Flickr albums to follow along with the pictures, along with any links that we will be referring to. Facebook.com/AVRant podcast, YouTube.com/AVRant. Contact us directly, Rob at avrant.com. His socials is at First Reflect. I'm Tom at avrant.com, even though I cannot get that email right now. So don't bother. I'll have to figure out how to forward that someplace else. I want to thank our listeners of the week. To become a listener of the week to support the podcast in some way, one of the ways you can do that is going to avrant.com. Click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link. I think I missed Jefferson last week. I think I did.
Well, it came in on the day we were recording. So.
Yeah, that's weird, though, because on PayPal, it shows him coming in before Lawrence somehow.
Okay.
Or, I don't know. I have to look at PayPal again. Let me get my phone out here.
Whatever it was, we did have a PayPal donation from Jefferson, and we very much appreciate it. So thank you, Jefferson.
And Lawrence, if you gave us 2, then we thank you again. But I don't
that
think
could be. I don't know.
Be.
I don't see that stuff.
So thank you very much. We also want to thank our patrons over at patreon.com /AVRant podcast. Sign up to be a monthly contributor. We currently have 133 patrons. So thank you to all of you.
Yeah, that is patreon.com/AVRant podcast if you'd like to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. So a big thanks to our 133 patrons over there. That ticked up.
All right. If you can't support us financially, we understand. So just do something and let us know, and we will mention it here. So first, we want to mention Cody, who offered to convert my CAD files that I was talking about last week to the format that we need. He isn't a daily CAD user, so he can't make a 100% profit. But he'd be happy to try and help me. I will tell you that it doesn't look like that, Lawrence. Maybe Lawrence did donate twice, but once was on the 1st of April, and once was just right around the same time as Jefferson. So I think I maybe missed Jefferson last week. So I apologize, Jefferson, if I missed you.
Okay.
So yes, thank you, Cody. That would have been very helpful. But we did have my wife's friend who did it. It was really weird.
Okay.
Yeah. So we contacted her to ask her, and she was like, "Yeah, I can do it, but it'll have to be tomorrow because right now I'm in chemo." I was like,
"Oh
what?"
gosh.
And so she has been battling cancer for a couple of years now. She stayed with us for a while, and to get some treatment here in town. And she just I guess it's still, we haven't really heard the whole story, so we're of course worried about her, but whatever. We will. I mean, that's neither here nor there, but it was certainly uncomfortable for a second. We also got permission from Jefferson to use his photos on AV Gadgets, so thank you very much, Jefferson.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to say hopefully your wife's friend will be okay. And so thank you to Cody. That was a very nice offer. So glad that there was a backup plan if needed. So that was really nice of you to say that. And Jefferson, thank you again for giving that permission to use your photos on avgadgets.com.
Let's see here. We also got notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going through, I guess, the world's shortest tariff war that we started and then stopped.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. Nothing's over yet.
We think it is.
It's definitely
somebody
not.
over here thinks it is. It isn't me, but somebody does. Gurinder, Henry, both sent get well wishes to Rob. I guess Gurinder and Henry both did.
They did.
So yes, Rob, get better now. Jefferson says we are his yard work podcast, and he encourages me to stay strong. Yay! Jefferson lived through Hurricane Katrina, and while it took a while to properly go through all the insurance claims and to follow all the rules, he did eventually end up better off than before. So in the experience, it is worth doing it right rather than just doing it quickly, which is what we're trying to do. Thank you, Jefferson.
Yeah.
I just breathed.
Yep. Down the wrong pipe. That sounds about right.
Sorry, guys.
I'll carry on.
Sorry,
you go.
Mark, Nelson, Sasi, and Tom T. Who's not E. Different.
That's
he highly recommends the miniseries Adolescent on Netflix. He hopes he'll hear us discussing it in the What We Watch segment at some point. I've never heard of that. Can make no promises because I haven't been watching anything, but I will try. So Gurinder, Henry, Jefferson, Mark, Nelson, Sasi, and Tom, thank you for thanking us.
I'll say the names one more time. Gurinder and Henry, thank you for the get well wishes. I appreciate it very much. Jefferson, Mark, Nelson, Sasi, and Tom, thank you all very much as well for the notes of gratitude and encouragement. We very much appreciate them. A big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions. And yes, Tom T, I do have Adolescent on my list, and one day I shall watch it. Never, ever take me not having seen something as I don't want to watch it. It is never the case. I am willing to watch absolutely anything and give it a shot. It's purely about time. So there we go. But Adolescent is on my list. One day I hope to check it out.
Yes. One day. In the news, hubris, Rob says. Hubris. Right after we finished recording last week, Nintendo of Canada announced that pre-orders for the Nintendo Switch 2 in Canada will not start until April 9th, 2025.
Will not start on April 9th.
Oh, not start on.
Plan.
Yes. In order to align with the timing of pre-orders to be determined in the U.S. So Rob does not have any Switch 2 pre-orders in hand. Nintendo's own direct pre-orders, which require a Nintendo online account and a record of you having played at least 50 hours on the Switch 1?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah.
Are you serious? Is that serious?
Like if you want to pre-order directly through Nintendo, like not through Best Buy or Walmart or GameStop,
not for casuals?
Or
is that what it is?
They're trying to like stop the scalpers from getting the ones that are directly through Nintendo.com.
I see. Those were always set to begin on May 8th, so perhaps that will also end up being the pre-order date for other retailers, but that's purely speculation on, I guess, Rob's part.
Yeah, so I'm signed up on all the lists, the Best Buy, Walmart, GameStop, Amazon lists, to be notified as soon as pre-orders are going to go live. But supposedly that is now going to be the same time as the USA for Canada. And yes, as people have pointed out, it is just the logistics of shipping lanes and stuff and the way everything goes that we are just so darn tightly tied together, the two countries, that Nintendo of Canada doesn't get to escape the tariffs being levied by Nintendo on Nintendo of USA for bringing things in. So I'm very disappointed in that. There are people who have their pre-orders over in Europe and other parts of the world, but not here in Canada. So I don't get to lord that over anybody. Very disappointed.
Oh, well. And the PS5 just got more expensive, at least in Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. So he says that due to challenging economic environment, I'm going to wonder what they're talking about, including high inflation and fluctuating exchange rates, they have made the tough decision to raise the retail price. The price of the PS5 already went up back in August 2022. In Europe, the launch prices were €400 for the digital edition and €500 for the version that came with the disc drive. In August, those prices went up to $450 and $550. So now the digital edition goes up to $500. No change for the disc version, so that's still $550, and the PS5 Pro stays the same at $665, which is one off from the number of the beast.
Yeah, they had to make sure of that. But yeah, I mean, this is unusual, right? Seeing prices go up on
as
consoles
ages
as they
is
get
really
older.
Unusual, yes.
Like we're just, we're not used to that, for game consoles to get more expensive as they go along. So for everyone who's complaining that the Switch 2 is too expensive at $450, Sony is like, well, we'll help you out. We'll just make the PS5 more expensive, and then the Switch 2 will still seem like a better deal. I'm sure that was what was in their mind.
Probably. That's almost certainly it. All right. SVS has released their new 5,000. Is that a line or an I?
It's a line. They insist on having a line in between the R and the E of revolution. Revolution, evolution. There's a line, a vertical line in between the R and the E.
SVS, you have betrayed me.
That was there before.
All right. They have released their new 5,000 Evolution series subwoofer to replace the 4,000 series, which are now on clearance sale. And there's no more cylinder model, just a sealed SB5000 Evolution and a triple ported PB5000 Evolution.
That's right.
I'm going to have to say it that way now, I guess. Triple ported.
Yep.
PB in there. I'm messing around. It's usually triple port. It's going to be huge anyways. As you can probably guess from the naming, the 5000 Evolution series gets trickle-down technology from the flagship 17 Ultra Evolution series that launched last year. The 5000 series uses all new dual voice coil 15-inch driver powered by a dual monoblock 2000 watt, which is a 5000 watt peak amplifier with one monoblock driving each voice coil, along with the same 295 megahertz DSP processing as the 17 Ultra series. This allows these subs to extract maximum electrical power from a standard 15 amp wall outlet and the 860 amp 200 volt MOSFETs inside. And the 860 amp 200 volt MOSFETs inside ensure maximum headroom.
Yeah, that is crazy high power handling MOSFETs. So
it's like you plug it in, and then it takes like 30 seconds to charge up everything in it, and then it's ready to go. It's like,
pretty much, yeah. I mean, they ain't joking around with that type of power handling.
Well, it's better than requiring people to run a 20 amp circuit to their home theater
that
for
was
their
just
sub.
It. They were very determined to make sure that this could run off a standard 15 amp circuit. So there's a power factor correction power supply in there. In other words, don't plug this into a normal battery backup.
Yeah.
If you are ever going to plug this into any sort of battery backup, it must be a pure sine wave battery backup, because this will have oscillation problems if you plug it into a standard stepped approximation of a sine wave battery backup. And they're like, yeah, we've got our own basically like power regeneration inside of these amplifiers. So in other words, plug them straight into the wall. That's fully what they're intending with these. Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is. They're pushing the limits, really.
The cabinets available in either ash black or piano gloss black are about an inch to an inch and a half smaller in every direction versus the 17 Ultra series, but these are still big subs. 18.3 inches by 17.8 inches by 19.5 for the sealed SP5000.
Yeah.
And Basically 2 feet tall, 23.4 inches tall, 20.5 inches wide, and 28.7 inches deep for the PB5000.
Yeah, that one's got 6 feet. The PB5000 has 6 feet, not 4, because it's a chonky boy.
So the sealed SB5000 claims extension down to 17 Hz at -3 dB, while the PB5000 can be tuned to either 15 Hz at -3 dB with all 3 ports open for maximum output, 13 Hz in -3 dB in extension mode with 1 port plugged, or 16 Hz at -3 dB in sealed mode. Why? Why would you buy this massive thing and then shove 3 ports in it?
That is a little bit strange.
It's tighter. It's more musical.
But, as much as we have said that we might be the only home theater enthusiasts out there who aren't all gaga over infrasonic bass, what's I do like here is when your -3 dB point is like -16, -15, it means it is truly flat down to 20.
Yeah.
It is not beginning to roll off before 20 hertz, even with all ports open. Even the sealed one is like barely starting to roll off at 25 hertz. So these get really, really low, really, really flat, and therefore still have lots of output below 20 hertz that Tom and I do not personally care much at all about, but we do care about having genuine 20 hertz output, and these definitely have that.
I can only imagine how loud they get, though. What
Not as loud as the 17 Ultras.
So the SB5000 is priced at $2,000 for the black ash finish, $2,100 for the piano gloss black. I mean, if you're okay, so there's going to be somebody who's going to say, "Oh, well, you should get that black ash because it's not as reflective as a piano gloss." Mm-hmm. And they are not wrong.
Yeah.
Except that they are wrong. I mean, they both
like
reflect.
Having a non-glossy option.
One
nice.
You will see the reflection and be able to see whatever is being reflected. The other one will be light coming off of it. It's not like it's it's a completely absorptive black hole.
The piano gloss is definitely much more like a mirror-like finish than the black
and
ash.
Totally worth an extra $100 as far as I'm concerned, because
that's
pretty.
Not too bad, honestly.
Yeah.
That's pretty okay.
The PB5000 is priced at $2,500 for ash black and $2,700 for piano black, and that seems reasonable as well.
It's a substantially bigger box. They're charging more, $200 extra instead of $100 extra for the piano black finish. But not too bad. So those are basically $500 less than the 17 Ultra series.
So they are available to order and ship in the U.S. right now, with international availability coming in within a month.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's
exciting.
And if you were champing at the bit for a 4000 series, now's the time. They're on sale, and particularly the cylinders, because they're going away. The 2000 Pro is going to be the only cylinder left, and if you need the higher output capabilities of the PC 4000 cylinder, now is the time to grab 1 or 2 or 4.
So one of the things my wife asked me if we do end up lifting the house is the garage ends up becoming living space. Okay. And she's like, "Well, would you want to put the theater in there?" I'm like, "Nope." No, I do not.
I guess you're not interested in digging a basement under the garage either.
Well, no. That's not gonna.
That would definitely get flooded if a flood comes along.
That is not. Would not be insurable. We'll put it to you that way.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I don't want to. I wouldn't. Well, she's like, well, we could turn the home theater room back into a bedroom with its own bathroom, mother-in-law suite, and then we could have a bigger home theater in this other room. I'm like, you don't know what you're asking. It's like suddenly everything gets more expensive. Like everything gets bigger. Everything gets more.
Making a garage into an actual climate controlled space is not a trivial thing. So
well, I know, but it's that is going to be part of the raising process. That's all part of it, and because you end up having to turn that into living space because it is living space because it's above. It goes up with it. It's all part of the same foundation.
Well, I can see it being insulated, but that doesn't necessarily mean fully climate controlled. There's still
it's going to end. So we end up having to do something with it. So I'm not exactly sure how that would work, and maybe that's what we'll end up doing if she really wants it. I mean, what am I going to do? Say no to a bigger home theater? Guess what I am going to do though? I am still going to have a TV in there. I'm not going back to a projector.
Okay.
and I'll sit closer, and I will cordon it off, and I will...
I mean, if you get a 98-inch, you don't even have to sit closer.
Not
That's
that much
bigger than the
closer.
projection screen you had.
Yeah. So the projection screen's dead. That went on the curb with everything else. It's gone. It got wet up quite a bit, actually. So, okay, more than 50 Chinese companies, including Hisense, TCL, and I don't know how to say this
Huawei.
word. Huawei?
Well, the anglicized version is Huawei. Yeah. That's not at all the correct pronunciation, but that's what we say over here.
Have announced a new alternative to HDMI and DisplayPort called GPMI, General Purpose Media Interface.
That's what we need.
Okay, all these American companies over here that cannot figure out how to name things, and the Chinese are like, let's just call it General Purpose Media Interface, GPMI. How hard is that? How hard is that to do? You know what really pisses me off, Rob, is that the room that I normally podcast in, I put two more massive 4 foot by 4 foot by 2 inch thick acoustic panels in there so that the podcasting would be even better. And now I had to switch rooms because that's not what the computer is.
That's right.
Anyways, I can tell the difference just listening in here. Anyways, it can deliver 96 gigabits per second, the same as a new HDMI 2.2 standard, over a USB Type-C connection, and via their own GPMI Type-B connection, the bandwidth can go up to 192 gigabits per second. GPMI...
We need that for 4K, but, whatever.
Whatever. GPMI can also carry power and network signals in addition to audio and video signals. So the aim is to make it a true single cable solution. Via the Type-C plug, it can deliver 240 watts of power. I don't actually know what that means. Like, what can that power?
Well, I mean, certainly any source device. Most source devices really only use about 60 watts, maybe up to 100 watts.
Yeah.
So many smaller TVs would be able to be powered by that. Not your large screen, probably nothing bigger than a 55-inch. Yeah.
And their Type B, and via their Type B plug, can deliver up to 480 watts of power.
So that'll power just about any TV that's out there. Yeah.
So they also have their own control protocol, which to allow one device to control another, similar to HDMI CEC. If you can't see me, I am pointing at you, Rob. You cannot see me.
I can't.
I am pointing at where I am still looking as if there were a camera on the screen. Okay,
yes, right.
I am pointing at it right now. If they make HDMI CEC, their GPMI CEC work, I am going to lose my dang mind. You do not know how angry I am going to be. I am going to be furious if they make it work, because that means it could have always worked.
Right.
It could have always worked, Rob.
It is a big question mark, but the idea, that's not the thing that we hated. It was just the execution on the HDMI side. So yes, yet to be seen.
I think the promise of HDMI CC is perfect.
Yeah.
Is perfect.
Use whatever remote you want, connect all your devices together, pick up one remote, it controls everything.
So the problem is my parents have now moved into a different house. My dad's already talking to me about remote controls. I'm like,
wait for the X2.
I've got the first one.
Yep.
I've still got the first one at home. Like, I bought two, right? With the Kickstarter.
The original X1.
The original X1. And I gave one to my parents, which got flooded. And I have mine that I kept, but it was high. And so I was planning on setting that up over there for them to have, because they don't have that many devices, but they have more than one source. And as long as they have more than one source, like, they're always going to have a cable box, and cable boxes are just a nightmare.
Yep.
Yeah. So
CEC does not like cable boxes.
Yeah. So I'm already irritated. So anyway, so far it's only Chinese companies that have joined the GPMI alliance. I'll join. Where's the paperwork? But if it really catches on and other non-Chinese companies start using it, HDMI just might have some genuine competition in the consumer electronics space. Please.
They did say they were looking to start with consumer electronics, not just computer interfaces.
Yes.
So that is their goal with it. Now the thing is, USB Type-C cabling, whether that's Thunderbolt or USB 4, whatever, what have you, those cables do not tend to work great over long distances. They have a similar, you sort of need to limit them to maybe 10 feet max. 6 feet is often sort of the butter zone. And longer than that, you end up needing to transition over to, optical conversion, use a fiber optic, and then have converters on either end type of solution. So like, for VR, right? For a lot of people connecting their VR headsets via USB-C cabling to a PC that's much, much farther away, and they end up with a 30-foot or 40-foot cable. Those are almost always a fiber optic USB cables. So, kind of similar concerns there as far as that goes. Whether the Type B connection would allow for a more robust cable that would work better over long distances without having to convert to fiber optic, I'm not sure. But yeah, there is that little bit of pause there. I wouldn't go saying that this is instantly going to be the better long distance solution, just because we already know USB Type-C has those issues to begin with.
Right. Yeah. I don't know.
Sounds interesting, though.
I mean, USB Type-C. I mean, if they can come up with a cable that's just not ridiculously expensive, like the HDMI long cables are, I don't know. Comments from listener Steve. Steve's wife bought a tiny little JBL Bluetooth speaker because it was cute and pink, but to the surprise, it also sounds really good. How? The bass manages to it manages to output is surprising. I mean, because they're not trying to make it dip too low would be my guess, just from looking at it, and they're just like, okay, here is some stuff.
I looked it up. This is the JBL Go 4. It's MSRP is $50. They're on sale directly from JBL for $40 right now. So they have an even smaller one. They have a Go 3 that's even smaller. But this one, in their own specs, they claim 90 hertz extension. And that isn't even with a -3 or a -6 or a -10 attached to it. So who knows? But they're claiming that 90 hertz is the lowest it plays. 4.2 watts is all it has. It's a single driver. This is like basically a little 3-inch square, not even 2 inches in depth, less than 0.7 of a pound, the entire thing. But it's IP67 rated, so it's basically waterproof and dustproof. 7 hours battery life playback. Does take 3 hours to charge, so it's not super fast charging. But one of the really cool features is it supports Auracast, which is the thing that lets you send one source to many. So you can do stereo pairing very easily with almost any Bluetooth device. But with Auracast, you can have one, as long as your source device supports Auracast, you can have one source device that goes to many of these if you want to spread them around, have a whole bunch of them playing all together. So they've got some interesting little Bluetooth speakers over at JBL going right now. They've got one that's basically attached to a carabiner clip with similar output capabilities to the Go 4 in a couple of different sizes. That one is very, very waterproof, and they even show it like using the carabiner clip to like hang it on your shower head. So that can be your shower Bluetooth speaker. So yeah, I like what JBL is doing with that. And how do they make it sound like that? I mean, that is one of the fun things of having a DSP controlled amplifier connected directly to a single driver. It is not going to be the most linear thing, certainly not natively. But with lots of DSP control over that driver, you can basically let it play as loud as it possibly can at every frequency and just back it off before it really starts to distort and sound bad.
Right. Yeah, people think that, subwoofers are like the most necessary thing because of how, sorry, I've got something on my screen and it won't go away. So that we need subwoofers to play all of the bass. And there's so much bass so much things that you would identify as bass that are quite a bit higher. So, it's putting out bass. There's just no doubt about it. Is it like the lowest bass? No. If you compared it to something that played the full frequency range, you're like, oh, some of those sounds aren't there at all. But who cares? It's an itty-bitty speaker. Put it in your shower with you or whatever.
That's right.
Gurinder, his replacement amplifier from SVS's Canadian distributor arrived at his doorstep last Friday. Yay!
Yay! It is here.
And he's got pictures. So
he does.
You can see them. Visually, the insides look different from his original amp. New one on top of the photo. So if you're looking at the photo on the Flickr album.
The newly arrived one is on the top. The old one is on the bottom.
But it took him less than 10 minutes to do the swap, and it works perfectly. He was really happy to have both of his subwoofers back in action, and just in time to have some company over to watch Dunkirk. Didn't make the dialogue any easier to understand, though. So there you go.
I guess that's not in the 80 down to 20 hertz bass.
I guess not.
The problem was not enough infrasonic extension. Then the dialogue would have been super clear.
All right, some questions here. Henry starting off strong with tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
Sure seems like they're going to have some kind of impact. Do you think? I can't.
Yep.
I can't even. I can't.
It's a reasonable guess. Reasonable guess.
It's not, I mean, it's almost like somebody warned us that it was a bad idea, but then they did it anyways. And then people went, wait a second. This is not good. Okay. All right. And within the next 2 to 3 years, it doesn't seem like that the outcome is going to be prices going down on electronics that are made anywhere outside of the U.S. and nothing is made in the U.S. So even if it is, it's not made with things that are made in the U.S.
There's definitely going to be parts that are made outside of the U.S. or materials
or
mined outside of the U.S.
That's right. Yeah. Wait, does it have a battery? Because guess what? That wasn't mined in the U.S. either. So he has been taking stock of all of his existing equipment and trying to identify everything that should be fine to continue using for the next, let's pick a random number, like say 4 years, and which pieces of gear he might want to upgrade before then. Because if there's anything that sticks out as being an upgrade candidate, he might as well do that right now while retailers still have stock and that they brought in prior to the tariffs kicking in. So here's his home theater list, and he hopes we can go over it with him. The JVC NP5 projector got it around the end of 2023. That's fine. That's not you don't have to do anything with that.
No, so my only thought there was if you do not have a replacement lamp on hand, that might not be the worst thing to get. There's a decent chance that within the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years that you will want to replace the lamp. That's pretty common. So having a spare lamp on hand, that would be one I think is, it's not an unreasonable thing to buy right now. They're not crazy expensive, and prices are almost certainly going to go up on replacement lamps, not only because of tariffs, but also because there is so much pressure, particularly in the EU, to get all projectors transitioned over to laser light engines. So projector lamps are going to become less and less common. That's going to make them more costly, tariffs or not. So yeah, having a replacement lamp on hand, that's one I would definitely consider buying right now.
Right. Marantz Cinema 70 Slimline 7-channel receiver, also bought in 2023. He uses its full set of pre-outs, so it's basically a pre-pro. I mean, if you're not planning on buying any more or adding any more speakers, which it doesn't sound like, I don't see why this would be. I mean, can it go bad in the next 4 years? Yes.
I suppose.
Are you going to sit around? Are you going to buy another one or buy a replacement and just have it sit in a box?
Right.
I don't know. I wouldn't do it.
This to me is the one where if you already had it in mind that you very much want to expand beyond 7 speakers, because that is a hard limit on the Cinema 70. You are not going to go beyond 7 speakers being powered by the Cinema 70 or processed by the Cinema 70, even using it just as a pure pre-pro. So if you really had plans in mind to go to 9, 11, 13, 15 speakers, then that's one where, AV receivers, I'm sure, are going to get more expensive. Again, I don't think just because of tariffs. I think AV receivers in general are only going to get more expensive from now on because the market for them is shrinking.
Yeah.
And so just AV receivers in general, as demand goes down, then the number of people buying them, the price of each individual unit is going to go up, and not just because of tariffs. So that is one where if you were like, this was going to be my next upgrade anyway, because I know I want to get to a 13 or a 15 speaker setup, then that's one where I'm like, okay, accelerating that plan, getting the new AV receivers sooner than later, that would, out of everything that's yet to come, spoiler alert, I'm going to say that the AV receiver is maybe the one I would consider. But if you're like, no, I've got a 5-channel or a 7-channel setup, I'm set with that. I have no plans to expand with that. Then there is no need to replace the Cinema 70. If you know that that's as many speakers as you're going to want to drive, then it is right up to date. Every single port is HDMI 2.1 with full bandwidth. The processing's right up to date. So there's no need there. That would be a want. But out of everything, that would be the one I would consider. If you already had plans in place, it's time to accelerate the plans on the AV receiver.
But if you're not, then if you're just planning on living with 7 speakers, then I would not do anything with that. He's got Paradigm Founder Series LCR for a center, a 40B front, left, and right. Another 2023 purchase. I'm going to keep going with speakers here. Paradigm Surround. 1 pair from 2021. REL Predator subwoofer, just bought last year. Monoprice. I guess let's just do the speakers all together. I don't. I mean, are you unhappy with how they sound? Because that's how I would worry about that.
Speakers, I'm maybe a little bit less concerned about speaker prices, going way up, because there are a number of speakers that are made in North America. Again, certain parts and materials are probably going to be imported, but the notion that speaker prices are going to spike way through the roof, I could be proven wrong. That could easily be the case, but I'm a little bit less concerned about that one in particular. So certainly no need to replace those speakers. That will be low on my priority list for sure.
Yeah, unless you're, I've gotten to the point, you've heard this on this podcast many times, I've just gotten to the point where I'm like, if you've got decent speakers, the motivation for you to upgrade them to something for a pure sonic upgrade is extremely low, in my opinion.
Yeah, those are more than decent what he already has there.
Right.
So.
Monoprice Monolith 5 amplifier bought used this year. It's working. It's going.
Should be no reason to replace that one.
Don't let water get in it. Panasonic UB 9000 Ultra HD Blu-ray player from 2021. Blu-ray players Ultra HD Blu-ray players in particular are not exactly
long for this world.
Yes. So I don't really know what you should do about that.
Yeah, that would purely being a sort of a little bit of a prepper gonna buy one and hold on to it as a just in case, but no, there's no particular, certainly no need to replace it. That's the flagship that's out there, so that should be good to go.
All right. Is there anything in the setup where we think won't be able to last him for the next 3 or 4 years? And no. Other than, it really depends on how much you use your projector too, as far as that bulb goes. It's never a bad idea to have a bulb around. I don't really think they age, just sitting in the box.
In the box, yeah.
But I would have a bulb on hand. But other than that, everything else I'm not worried about.
Yep.
Dazz. A couple of years ago, Dazz promised his eldest son that he give him his 5.0 set of original Andrew Jones Pioneer speakers and the AV receiver to power them as soon as his son had a place to live that could accommodate them. For almost 2 years now, his son and his best friend have shared an apartment, and they really didn't have the proper space for a 5-speaker setup. But now those two, plus a couple more friends, have found a house that they're all going to rent together. Dazz has already been over there, and it's got a fairly open living room where Dazz helped them wall mount a TV. They did not go above the fireplace. The TV is actually on the wall opposite the fireplace, which is going to make for some interesting furniture placement, but they'll figure it out. Once they're a little more settled in, he's going to bring over the Andrew Jones Pioneer speakers and hook them up for them. His son has never brought this up or reminded Dazz of his promise, but Dazz remembers, and he's a man of his word. Mm-hmm. His son and his friends have to figure out their subwoofer situation, though Dazz doesn't have any spare subwoofers to give them right now, and when he does get his new theater subs at some point, his current SB12 NSD subs are getting moved into his living room, so the kids are on their own as far as subs go. The part where Dazz needs our advice is the AV receiver, and maybe a little bit of bouncing ideas off of us about his own speakers. He's been using a pair of Andrew Jones bookshelf speakers in his own living room. He's been powering them with an Onkyo TX-NR646 receiver. That's from 2015, so it's got 7 channels and supports up to 5.1.2 Atmos and DTS:X. Its HDMI ports top up at 4K 4K60 with HDR10, no Dolby Vision, no HDR10 Plus, and no VRR or 4K 120, of course. And there's also no eARC. But this is only going to be a 5-speaker setup anyway. It's only got Accu EQ on board for auto setup and room correction. His own living room has never been a critical listening situation, so he's never bothered to even use it. And he doesn't figure his son and his friends are going to acoustically treat their new rented living room. It would be easy enough to pass along that Onkyo receiver, but they do have a PS5, and they went with an AVRant approved TV recommendation that is right up to date and can handle everything the modern gaming consoles can output. So Dazz was going to get a new receiver regardless, unless he decided to switch to self-powered speakers in his living room, which is a whole other kettle of fish that we'll get to in a moment. So the main question for now: would the Onkyo be good enough to give to his sons and his friends to use with his 5 Pioneer speakers, or should he get them a better AV receiver and just keep the 646 himself? And if he does get something better for his son, what should it be? Okay, I think you should give it to your son. I don't know that Rob agrees with me, but I think you should plug the PS5 directly into the TV and then use who gives a crap to get the audio back to the AV receiver. It's going to be in a terrible room in non-optimal placements. I don't care where you put the speakers. I think the surround speakers are going to end up in front of the listening position. I just think that's where they're going to end up, and that's going to be it. And they're like, oh yeah, we'll move them back whenever we're playing games. No, you won't. No, you won't. No, you won't. In fact, as much as you've promised these things, I would highly suggest that you see what let them set everything up, as far as where they're sitting and stuff like that. Then you go over there and be like, okay, this doesn't really support surround speakers. Here's a 3.0 system. They're never buying a subwoofer. They're poor, I'm sure. They gotta be. They're all poor. Kids are poor, and I doubt that they're going to be buying a subwoofer. So if it were me, I would give them that Onkyo, let them plug everything into the TV. Literally, they probably don't have much else other than maybe a streaming box. Just plug it all into the TV, and then have a fiber optic cable throw the sound back down to the receiver. They have a 2-point or a 3-point system up front. Bob's your uncle. You're done. That's what I would do.
And I am not in total disagreement with that. I totally see where Tom is coming from, and I do think that's a reasonable way to go. So I'll just make the counter argument, because the other side of it is, if you were going to end up buying something to power a set of speakers anyway, then just given what's available right now, that would be a really genuine upgrade over that 646. Over at Accessories for Less, Onkyo's TX-NR 7100. They've got the refurbished ones selling for $600, but they're also selling brand new ones for $650. So A stock is only $50 more than B stock over at Accessories for Less right now on the Onkyo NR 7100. Now, this is a pretty substantial upgrade in capabilities over the 646. So first of all of its ports are HDMI 2.1, so you can plug anything into the AV receiver ports and it'll pass it along 4K 120, VRR, every flavor of HDR, and then if they prefer, for whatever reason, logistical reasons, placement reasons, to plug the gaming console directly in the TV, then it also supports eARC, so you have fully lossless audio going back the other direction, whatever it wants to support. It's fully up to the capabilities of any of the modern gaming consoles. Then one nice thing I really like about the NR7100, you might be like, hey, that's total overkill. They've only got 5 speakers. Why would you get a 9-channel processing, 9 amplifiers built-in AV receiver? So first of all, just because it is a discontinued model at this point, those prices are not going to be around forever. $600 refurb, $650 brand new. I think that's a really good deal. But also, your PS5, your Xbox Series X, all of your streaming boxes and everything like that, they all do support Atmos output. And even though you're only going to have 5 physical speakers, the Dolby Atmos height virtualization, it works well, in my opinion. I quite like using the height virtualization. The only thing that I really will say is better than that is actual speakers on your ceiling or high up on your walls, producing that sound. Otherwise, I don't think I would use the upward firing over the virtualization. I think the virtualization actually sounds a bit better than the upward firing modules. So I quite am a fan of the virtualization, and the virtualization does work on the total channel count of the AV receiver that you're using. So if you use a 7-channel receiver with Dolby Atmos height virtualization, it's only going to virtualize 2 overhead speakers. It's only going to attempt to virtualize top fronts or top middles, one or the other, but not both. It'll just be 2 overhead speakers, whereas with the 9-channel count on the NR7100, it will virtualize 4 overhead speakers. You'll actually get some movement effects virtualized above you, and I think that's pretty darn cool for, $600 potentially. So that's the argument for, spending substantially more, but giving your son and his friends something that's really, really right up to date, and however they want to plug things in, it's ready for everything. And Atmos will light up on the front panel and all of that, even though there's only 5 physical speakers attached. If you wanted to come down in price, then still at Accessories for Less, still B-Stock refurbished. For $388, they've got Denon's S970H in stock right now for that $388 price point. The Andrew Jones Pioneer speakers are not the easiest to drive. They're not hard to drive, but they're not particularly sensitive. They need a fair amount of wattage behind them. So I don't want to point you to a 50 watt or a 70 watt, type of amplifier. A nice full genuine 100 watts per channel, and that's what the S970H can deliver to you. I think that's kind of where you want to go with that. So it's basic Odyssey multi-EQ. That's fine. It'll do a perfectly good setup. I should mention the NR7100, the Onkyo, comes with Dirac. No extra charge. It comes with a microphone that you can use to set up Dirac directly, so you don't have to purchase anything extra. You can run it off the smartphone app for no additional charge. So, it's got a pretty sophisticated room correction system there as well. So if you want to be that little bit nicer, so that Denon S970H, it's got 6 HDMI inputs, 3 of which are HDMI 2.1. So that's fully sufficient. Even if they have Xbox Series X, PS5, and a gaming PC, they could plug all 3 of them into the S970H, and I don't imagine it could possibly be going farther than that. So 2 different price points there, 2 different options, and that's the argument to get them something new. And keep the 646 for yourself.
Okay, sorry, I'm doing...
I can't see what you're doing.
I know.
I don't see any video over there.
Doing something weird. So Dazz's own living room setup, he already has a spare pair of Sen HTM200 SE speakers on hand, so those will serve as a stopgap as soon as the Pioneer bookshelf speakers have gone over to his son's place. He does want to eventually use those surround back speakers in his home theater, though, so long term he's looking at getting a new pair of bookshelf speakers for the living room. As we touched on before, one option would be to get self-powered speakers. His wife would probably prefer the less complicated setup, and both of them would be fine with getting an AV receiver out of the living room entirely. But if he's not going to give his current Onkyo to his son, then they'll still have it on hand, and it could power, say, a pair of KEF Q350s just fine, right? Or a pair of HSU CCB 8s. All those are probably a little too big and not quite good looking enough, even though their sensitivity and power handling is very tempting. If he were to give himself a new AV receiver, he wanted to include good room correction. It's a waste, but whatever. At least multi-QXT32 or equivalent. And
that's going way up there.
That's way up there. And he wanted to have a phono input, but he'd also want it to be physically smaller than the Onkyo. So is there even an option that does all that? Is
nope.
No an answer?
That doesn't exist.
So just kicking around the ideas at this point, but what do we think he should do in his own living room setup? Self-powered speakers. You already said the word CAF.
Well, if you're going to buy something, but he doesn't even have to buy anything. He's got speakers on hand, and if you don't give the 646 to your son, if you are a very kind father and also buy him an AV receiver, one of the ones I recommended, then you already have everything on hand. You don't have to buy anything, and that's what I would do there. I mean, I wouldn't say you're shortchanging yourself. You're still putting nice equipment in your living room.
Yeah.
So that's my initial thought. I'm like, if it were me, I'd keep the 646 because you only need a 2-channel setup. So, you're not worried about any of the other concerns that are going on there. And then he already has the speakers. So done.
Right.
Unless he was going to get the HSU CCB8s. But like you say, they're probably too big and not quite pretty enough anyway. So,
yeah. I mean... Get those Arendelles. Those are small. Jefferson. Jefferson has made his den into a dedicated home theater space. It's roughly 13 by 17 with a permanent opening on the right wall at the front of the theater. This is an interesting space.
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't really lend itself to a door. All right. So there's a 10.
No, this isn't one where it would be easy to say, yeah, construct a door on this one. It's like, no, that opening is going to stay an opening.
So there's a 10-foot wide box behind his 135-inch Elite Screens Aeon Acoustic Pro UHD screen that houses his front speakers, which are all Atlantic Technologies 450s, which is great because Atlantic Technology, for the most part, have great off-axis response, so you can just throw them back there and they'll be fine. Yeah. He is lined around the box on the front wall with a 2-inch thick rock wool. He's also lined his side walls with 2-inch thick rock wool behind the black curtains that fully cover both side walls and let him visually close off the opening. There's a curtain, it looks like.
Yep. Curtain slides there. So he's like, yeah, he's got pretty good light control even during the day. It's not, affecting his contrast levels on that projection screen too much at all. And then, he's got a big old black curtain that closes off the opening into the den.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can't see, but if you go to the Flickr album or to the YouTube video, you'll see the pictures that show that it's pretty dark. It's hard to take a picture of dark, but it's dark. Okay. And then on his back wall, he's made 2-inch thick panels with custom prints of old historical theaters in his hometown of New Orleans, and the whole space is carpeted. Well, my friend, you've done more than I could have ever hoped. Oh, those are really cute. Those are good.
Those images on the back there. Yeah, those are nice.
Those are good. I like those.
Great use of custom images on acoustic panels. Yeah. Love that.
So he's got the main love seat facing the screen, and he's got a small couch up against the left wall, and a whole bunch of bar stools. So a surprising number of people can sit in this theater when he has friends over. But the majority of the time, it's just him using the theater. So he honestly only cares about the main seat as being close to as perfect as possible. All the other seats get what they get. He's got $3,000 burning a hole in his pocket, and he's got some changes in mind that he'd like to make. He's hoping he can bounce some ideas off of us to figure out exactly what he's going to get.
Let's do it.
His projector is a JVC RS1100, same as the MP5. He's happy with it. It doesn't intend to upgrade that for a while yet, but he'd like to have a replacement lamp on hand. Boy, that sounds familiar. Looks like you just said that.
We're not going to disagree.
Where should he order that from? He's aware of Projector Central's list of recommended lamp vendors, but are they actually reputable and the best places to purchase, or could we point him in better options? Okay, so I've used that list before, and it has been fine.
Yeah.
Also, many of them seem like the same company with different websites, because the websites are so remarkably similar.
Very similar. Yes, they do. That is true. If you want a couple of retailers that I feel really good about, they might not necessarily have the very lowest price particularly listed on their website, but if you actually call them on the phone, talk to them, because these are real life retailer salespeople, and there are deals to be had if you talk to them on the phone. AVScience.com. I always highly recommend them for anything to do with projectors. They are really good people over there. They know their stuff. They are absolutely familiar with a JVC, MP5, or RS1100 in your case. They can definitely get you a replacement lamp, and probably at one of the most competitive prices. So I have zero qualms about telling you to give them a call and talk to them. I think you'll feel very comfortable purchasing from AV Science. Also, projectorscreen.com. Another great place for anything to do with projectors, and as their name implies, projector screens, but they do more than that. Again, they'll be very familiar with the JVC RS1100 and be able to help you out there. So give them both a call, see what they both say, because if you're not comfortable with any of the online-only retailers through that list, I'm perfectly happy still pointing people to Projector Central's list. Never had any issues or negative feedback from anybody who's used them, but yeah, AV Science is top-notch for anything to do with projectors. Projector Screen is another great place as well, so contact them both.
Will do.
Is Tom still there?
I am still here.
Okay. I can't tell.
I'm trying to get into Dropbox on this computer at the same time as I'm talking to you. The main thing he'd like to get with his $3,000 budget is a new AV receiver. He's running a 7.4.4 configuration using his Atlantic Technology speakers for the floor level, plus 4 Aperion Clearus 2 in-ceiling speakers, and 4 SVS SB13 Ultra subs. That is a lot of subs for that space. He's been using a Marantz AV7702 Mark II Pre-Pro, along with a 5-channel Emotiva amp and a 2-channel Emotiva and a 5-channel Bryson.
He does have 11 speakers.
He does.
You end up with 12 channels of amplification.
He wants to downsize all of that and simplify things by just using an AV receiver to power his whole setup and selling the amplifiers to pay for the whole frickin' thing, probably.
Yeah, probably can.
He does kind of dig using XLR connections for his 4 subs. They're a little sexier than plain old RCA plugs that when he's showing off to his theater guests. So if there are any AV, okay, I've already got a solution for that you're not going to like, but maybe you will.
Sure.
I don't know.
I bet I can guess
but
that.
you can too. So if there are any AV receivers that offer XLR outputs for the subwoofers, that would be a plus, but it's not an outright requirement. He's okay with using RCA connections instead if necessary. And then he's got lots of different source devices, an Oppo 203, a region-free Sony X700. He's still got a Toshiba HD DVD player connected, an Apple TV 4K.
So do I.
And Project Debut Carbon turntable, which I think Andrew has as well. From AV
I believe so.
Captions.
Yeah.
Though I don't know that he uses it that much. I think he's using his Fluence more. And a Retro Tink 4K Pro for his VCR and retro gaming systems. He was hoping there might be an AV receiver that lets him individually choose I just scrolled on accident, on an input by input basis to either pass through the source video signal untouched or apply video processing in the AV receiver. For example, he trusts his Oppo 203 and his Retro Tink to always output the best possible video signal, but he doesn't want the AV receiver to touch those at all. But with his Apple TV 4K, his projector seems to wig out a lot and trying to keep up with all the resolution, HDR and SDR and frame rate changes. So that's why it's wigging out. So we prefer it if the AV receiver could process that video signal to smooth out the functionality. So are there any AV receiver choices that would check all those boxes for him? And where would be a good place to buy from? Oh, and he doesn't have any interest at all in buying refurbished or B-stock. He only wants a brand new unit. Well, I think that's silly, but that's your thing. So as far as the XLR, there are cables that have an RCA on one side and an XLR on the other. And that's
right.
1,000,000% what I would do in this situation. Because when people look at the back, they go, oh, look at it. First of all, nobody's looking at the back and saying, oh, look, you have a...
One person must have said one thing one time because otherwise he never would have commented on it here.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, yeah.
But, that for the budget that you're talking about, that kind of might end up being your only choice. Although, like Tom pointed out, if you actually are going to be selling the stack of amplifiers that you have, all of which are very nice amplifiers, plus that is still a nice pre-pro that you got, if you're actually selling those and recouping some of the cost, and so you've got $3,000 on hand, but you're actually going to have a larger total budget than that after selling equipment, maybe one of these AV receivers I'm going to mention is not totally out of the question. There are basically 2 AV receivers out there right now that can, first of all, power 11 speakers all on their own, and then also have XLR outputs that you can use for the subwoofers. One of which, of course, is Denon's flagship, the A1H. But if you are buying that brand new, it is nowhere close to $3,000 because brand new it is $6,500. Now, this is also complete overkill for your system because it has 15 amplifiers built in, not 11. But it does have 4 XLR outputs on the back for 4 individually addressable subwoofer channels. So that's individual distance and trim level, not individual EQ, but individual distance and trim level for all 4 of those. You can also reassign 3 out of those 4 XLR subwoofer outputs. So you can have 2 of them as your subs and then 2 of them as your front, left, and right channels or something like that. If you ended up keeping, say, your 2-channel amplifier, you can reassign it to be any of the front 3 speaker channels can use the XLR outputs on the Denon A1H. And you can also assign the subwoofer 4 output to be a dedicated tactile transducer output that does not get equalized along with the other subwoofer pre-outs, which is a really nice feature to have if you have tactile transducers. But yeah, like I say, brand new $6,500, even refurbished from Accessories for Less, it's $4,500. So this thing is not hitting your $3,000 price point, but it is one of the very few AV receivers that does have actual XLR outputs for your subwoofers. The other one, which is kind of within striking distance, would be the Integra DRX 8.4. This has 5 XLR outputs, so 2 subwoofers, and then the front 3 channels pre-outs are in XLR. form. So that is out there. This is the sister model to the Onkyo TX-RZ70. So this is 11 channels. It has 11 amplifiers built in, and the Integra version of it, the DRX 8.4, has the XLR outputs, and it goes for $3,200 brand new. So, that is over $3,000, but that's certainly closer in striking distance than $6,500 for the Denon A1H, and not quite as much overkill because this is 11 channels, not 15. So that is available from Crutchfield, which is where I would point you if you want to go brand new for an AV receiver. Really good retailer, Crutchfield is, and delivers anywhere in the United States. No problem at all there, and they always have good prices. Again, it's worth calling them. Call them on the phone, haggle a little bit. They're willing to do that. So you might be able to get pretty darn close to that $3,000 price point. That DRX 8.4 from Integra, it does come with Dirac, the full license, no extra charge for that. If you want to get the Dirac Live bass control, this does support that. The two subwoofer outputs are fully independent from one another, so you can do the full Dirac Live bass control with this, but that would be an additional charge. You have to pay extra to get the Dirac Live bass control, but the regular Dirac Live full room correction comes built in, no extra charge. So I am not opposed to you considering that Integra DRX 8.4. To get below $3,000, certainly Onkyo's TX-RZ70 that I mentioned, it's the sister model to this Integra, but it just doesn't have the XLR outputs on the Onkyo model, but it's $2,800 brand new, so that is definitely fitting under the $3,000 budget. If you were looking in Denon's lineup for one that has 11 amplifiers built into it, you're all the way up to the X6800H at a minimum, and that is $3,500 brand new, so that one's breaking the $3,000 budget as well. So here, price-wise, Onkyo and Integra, they might have the better deal for you.
So he's got an old ATSC 1.0 TV tuner that he'd like to replace. Which ATSC 3.0 tuner would be the right one to get?
Yeah, so I'm only going to point you to ones that do support the DRM. There are sort of some efforts underway, various consumer groups that are trying to get the DRM out of the whole ATSC 3.0 next-gen TV broadcast, but who knows if there'll be any success on that front, and it could flip-flop as things change and that. So I'm only going to point to ones that do support the DRM. Now, if what you want is, I've got an antenna, I want to plug it into a tuner, I want to plug that tuner into my AV receiver and my projector, and I just want to be able to watch over-the-air TV, then ADTH has the most cost-effective solution. It is a next-gen TV ATSC 3.0 tuner. You do have the option of plugging your own USB hard drive into it and using it as a single tuner DVR. So you can't record one thing while watching another. You can't record two things at once. You can just record one thing. And it is very, very basic DVR functionality. We're talking the old school. I set the time, I set the channel, and I set the duration manually. There's not even like a guide that you can just click on and say, hey, record this program. It's like really old school VCR style recording. But if that's all you want is the bare bones, then for $90, the ADTH Next Gen TV tuner box will do that with DRM support. That's the key thing. Almost nothing else has DRM support. Do not get the USB version. The DRM on that is not working properly yet. So get the proper box. It's $90 if that's what you want. If you want a more up-to-date DVR type of experience where you have the full guide, you click on the program, you say, hey, this is the program I want to record. You got two tuners, so you can record two things at once or be recording one thing while you're watching another one live. Then you'll want to look at the Zapper box for sure. The original Zapper Box M1, the dual tuner M1. What is it, $250? I'm only seeing the Canadian price, so I'm not sure if Tom can see that price, but I think it's $250.
I'll click on that here. Hold on. Everything on this computer is going very slow.
yeah. And then they do have an annual charge for the guide data, but it's like $40 for the year, so I don't think that's egregious or too bad at all. But yeah, that's the more up-to-date, feels like a modern DVR, but it's
dual
pulling things from
tuner
over there.
By itself is $274.95.
Okay.
And $287.95 with storage. I don't know what that means.
Yeah. It comes with an SD card for some extra DVR storage. That one you can plug a USB hard drive into it as well. So obviously a difference in price there, but one is truly bare bones and a single tuner, but maybe that's all you want, and $90 can get you there from ADTH. The Zapper box is like a proper DVR with full DRM support from ATSC 3.0. It can also record ATSC 1.0 as well. So dual tuners, $275. So those are your options.
Okay. Should he be looking to add more rock wool insulation? For example, should he fill the box behind his acoustically transparent screen? And should he put panels on the ceiling? No. Very rarely do I say those words in relation to adding more acoustic panels, but you've got a lot. I mean, when it comes down to it, you've got a ton. And that's good. That's great. I think that's phenomenal. Could you add more? Yes. Do I think it's worth it? Not without sealing in the room. There's a certain amount of bass that is just being lost to the rest of the house. And you've got a lot of bass going on in here. But like you said, you only really care about that one seat. So, treating the room would, in best case, with a wall and with a door and everything enclosed, would make it so that all the seats would sound better. With this, opening, I just don't see how. I mean, you've done more than most people ever have, and I feel like it would not be worth the cost. Is what I'll say.
My only thought was, he said all of them were 2 inches thick.
Yeah.
And it's like, so that means, because you have fully carpeted room, everything's only 2 inches thick. That means you have a lot of absorption happening in the upper mid-range and treble, and maybe not quite enough lower down in the bass. I imagine this is a pretty dead sounding space, honestly.
Yeah, sure.
As far as treble damping goes. So my only thought there is, like, you've got these black curtains up on the side walls, making I'm not saying like cover more surface area, but just making what's there thicker. I think that's like doable. Obviously, there's some cost involved with that, but that seems doable to me, given that everything is covered by these black curtains on the side walls. So I'm like, okay, if you can make that 4 inches thick or something like that, I'd be more keen to do that versus covering more surface area. I don't think you need to cover any more surface area in here. I'm already thinking it might sound fairly dead in the treble, but just so that you actually have a bit more absorption that gets down into that crossover region between speakers and subwoofers, making what's on the side walls thicker would be what I might try.
Yeah. I can get behind that, I guess. But even then, I really don't think it's going to make a huge amount of difference. He's interested in finding a certified ISF calibrator who serves the New Orleans area. ISF's own website didn't help much in that department.
Yeah. So over at AVS Forum, they've got an entire gigantic, like 298 page long thread of just ISF calibrators who are like, here's who I am, here's the certification level I have, and here's where I work. So you will want to use the search functionality within that thread, but if you're going to find one, it's going to be in that AVS Forum thread. We'll have the link for it for you.
Yes. This computer is so slow. God. Okay. With his 4 SB13 Ultra subwoofers, 2 of them are beneath side tables directly on either side of his main love seat, and he has zero intention of moving those elsewhere. The other 2 subs, one of them was on the front wall, a little over to the right of center, but then there's also a permanent opening to the room. And the 4th sub is on the back wall between a couple of bar stools that line the back wall. Sorry. Is there a better placement that he could use, keeping in mind that 2 of the subwoofer positions are fixed? And could he potentially improve things if we were to point the fronts of the subs in particular directions? So pointing the subs is not really going to make any difference. It's just like, at best, it's just turning the phase knob a little bit.
With SB13 Ultras, they have fully variable phase, so you could rotate the subs so they face a different direction and then counteract that with the phase knob. Yeah. So, in other words, why not just leave them where they are and use the phase knob?
Right.
Because that's the easier thing to do. If you're super anal retentive about it and super curious, that is one where that Dirac Live bass control might be interesting for you to use. I'm a little hesitant to say actually do it because it could end up being a lot more time and headache than it's honestly worth. Because I think you've probably done about the best that you can do for placement. I would be going for that, cross type of that T shape, middle of each wall, basically, if you could, and that's more or less the closest that you've done, given the fixed positions that you said, just to the left and right of the main seat, and then sort of middle of the front wall, middle of the back wall. I think that's pretty darn good. Yes, you've got the opening, not much we can do about that, but I wouldn't be encouraging you to change the subwoofer placement, especially given that two of them are in fixed positions.
Yeah. He noticed his Blu-ray version of The Fifth Element has both uncompressed PCM 5.1 and Dolby True HD 5.1 audio tracks options on the disc. He tried both, and they resulted in very different volume levels, even though he didn't change the master volume on his AV receiver at all. But he could even out their volume levels if he wanted to. So why are both options there, and why would he choose one over the other? Are there different use cases for PCM versus True HD versus DTS HD master audio? If you do not have an AV receiver that can decode True HD or DTS HD master audio, or a TV that won't pass it through because it's LG or they're mad at DTS for some reason, PCM is kind of nice to have around, and
I suppose
The Fifth Element.
This one, on the Blu-ray, that's going way back. That was one of the earlier releases on Blu-ray.
Yeah, that's the real thing. That's a real answer there.
Yeah, and it was when they had it in mind. So first of all, there were lots of AV receivers that didn't decode Dolby True HD yet, so that was one of the factors. In these cases, these were often intended for the players where they actually had a full set of analog, like 5.1 or 7.1 analog audio outputs, because AV receivers at the time often had a full 5.1 or 7.1 set of analog inputs, but they didn't have Dolby True HD decoders yet. So this is all about a snapshot in time of what was available back then. And that's more or less the reason. The originally Blu-ray, they thought all the players were going to do all the audio decoding and only ever output multi-channel PCM or multi-channel analog. That was the original conceit that they had. And later on, it was like, oh no, everybody wants bitstream. They want to see the bitstream logo light up on their AV receiver, and they got away from that, so you didn't really see the uncompressed PCM on Blu-ray discs later on. So there were all kinds of things early on, like getting even the dual layer discs originally was like problematic in the early years. So like that's why they're like, we can't really have the uncompressed audio on there. So the ones that did have it, they like touted it as a selling point. They're like, hey, we took up the space on the audio side and gave you the uncompressed PCM. So yeah, it's a snapshot in time more than anything else. Why was the volume level different? Well, because Dolby uses their dialogue normalization system. And so they have sort of a set SPL level that the dialogue is set at, and then everything else conforms around that. The uncompressed PCM, they just kind of threw it in there without any notice to normalization, so you ended up with different volume levels on the disc. But quality-wise, True HD is lossless. DTS HD Master Audio is lossless. There is no technical reason for any of them to sound different from each other, but they can if the mastering or the normalization levels were different.
Yes. Yet another in the long line of examples of why we have things we don't necessarily need or aren't necessarily better or worse, and sometimes are definitely worse, simply because the public will not do enough research to understand what they're looking at, and that's fine. I mean, that's fine, but it's also the reason why we have a billion stickers on the front of every AV receiver, even though half of them aren't for things that anybody uses, but it's just like, I've got more bullet points than you.
Won't let features go ever because somebody wants it.
LFP for whatever it's called. For PC, whatever.
Low pass filter, LPF for LFE.
Yeah. Let it die. Infinite Gary. Gary came across an article posted by Variety that describes the expansion of IMAX in Japan. That seems like it would be hard to have enough real estate in Japan to build an IMAX that wasn't already there. I mean, that seems expensive. But anyways, Toho Cinemas already operates 9 IMAX venues, and they are set to open 7 more by the end of 2026. In Hibiya, Hibiya. They will have the first Cineplex outside of North America to house 2 IMAX locations within the same building, with a second IMAX theater coming at the expense of converting an existing alternative premium large format screen. Across Japan, there are currently 53 IMAX locations. That seems like a lot. I have no concept of how large Japan is because the maps that we have
it is very dense. It is very dense.
The maps that I look at make America look like it's bigger than a lot of things it's not. So I have a completely distorted view of the size of continents. So there's 53 IMAX locations across Japan. They have agreements in place to open 17 more. Japan already ranks 3rd globally for IMAX box office grosses. It really feels like, and I, again, very ignorant of Japanese culture, but it does seem like the Japanese consumer cares more about saying they did something in a certain specific way that feels better, whether or not it actually is, than like some other people are just like, I went to the cheapest theater. I saw it, I saw it on the smallest possible screen in mono because it only cost $5. At least that's what people do here. All of Toho's Cinema's new IMAX theaters will feature 4K laser projection, and they point to their own Toho film productions, including popular anime releases, as having delivered strong results both domestically and internationally, with IMAX production as the lead format. Gary doesn't feel as though he intuitively understands it. Are IMAX theaters actually more profitable in Japan versus non-IMAX theaters? He always felt that expanded image would give him the sense of things being cinematic versus expanded height. But does the rest of the world feel differently? I don't know that anybody feels the way that you feel about anything, Gary. Let's just start with that. I think that you are a unique duck in a field of geese. So
I mean, hey, maybe Gary would like Screen X because that's got the 3 screens that stretch down the sides of the theater, and that's definitely expanded width is Screen X.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, clearly what's happening is that they feel like there's enough of a call for it, for people that are interested in going. And like Rob said earlier, there's a dense population within Japan. So one of the reasons why, very targeted businesses fail outside of metropolitan areas is because they're too limited. They're too targeted. They just don't have enough consumers locally to support them. Whereas I have seen videos of people talking about the differences between Japan and America, or Japan and the rest of the world. Like, this is a clothing shop that has one size. It has a single size. And that is it. If you are that size, everything in this shop will fit you. But if you are not that size, nothing in this shop will fit you. That does not work outside of a hugely dense population. And there's other things involved too. Maybe uniformity of people's body sizes and as opposed to here, where, we fat. And we're also tall and short too. So, I mean, there's all kind of other stuff going on. So to say that, hey, are they more profitable? Maybe, or maybe there's just so many people so densely packed that they can do something like this and say, hey, if there's 5 theaters in this area and one's, and it takes a long time to get across town you need to have 5 theaters because people won't go if it's not close by because it's too hard to get to. I mean, if you think about New York and traffic and all that other stuff, as opposed to, a more rural area, driving 5-10 minutes gets you somewhere. Going 5 or 10 minutes in New York, you're still waiting for your cab. You haven't gone anywhere yet.
So, I mean, I don't know the figures.
Sure.
I don't know whether it actually is substantially more profitable to be running an IMAX theater versus a standard theater in Japan. But yeah, I mean, the the agreement in itself is some indication that, like, if it was really, really costing them money, if they're absolutely not getting return on investment, they wouldn't be expanding at this rate. They've been expanding at a pretty good clip for the past decade or so. So certainly the indication is there that IMAX is favorable. Now, look, in my own neck of the woods, I favor going to the IMAX theaters in my area over any of the other theaters because the consistency is better. The consistency going to IMAX, for me particularly, the audio consistency is better. It's noticeable to me. So, like, movies are expensive anyway. So if I'm going to go out to a movie, I want to, like, have that peace of mind that I'm like, I know I'm going to get a consistently good experience. With IMAX, you know, you can actually call them up. They post the phone number at the end of every single IMAX presentation movie. And they're like, if there was a problem in this theater, let IMAX know. Like, they will get on that venue to get things fixed, which, you know, we've famously talked about the IMAX venues that we've had in the lower mainland of BC of they were not good about replacing the screens that had visible blemishes when we only had the 2 main IMAX screens, and both of them had blemishes, and it took which one? I forget which one of the Christopher Nolan movies that came out, but that finally got them to replace their screens, and so we're happy about that. But yeah, the audio consistency has always been there, and I care a lot about that. So yeah, you know, people in Japan, maybe they're similar to me. They're like, yeah, we like that consistency. Movies are expensive anyway, so let's go with that.
So when we talked about the new $2,000 Kaleidoscape Strato M player last week, I mentioned how there are plenty of projector owners who don't have the newest 4K resolution models or HDR capability, so a less expensive 1080p player makes perfect sense. Gary would fall into that category. He still loves his Remco projector, but it's from 2012, and it's only SDR and 1080p. But we went on to mention how the Strato M, while limited to 1080p output resolution, can still output HDR. So what happens in that case? If he buys a movie from Kaleidoscape's store, would he specifically need to buy the 1080p SDR version? Or if he were to buy the 4K HDR version, since he does have plenty of other displays in the house, would it need to perform HDR to SDR conversion when playing back on his projector? Could we end up back in a situation where HDR movies being converted down to SDR didn't look quite right on this SDR-only projector? Do we even know how that things are going to get sold in this store? It feels like we don't know that.
Well, I mean, Kaleidoscape basically puts up a single listing for their movie. So when you buy the movie, you're buying, like, I'm getting the Kaleidoscape version of this movie, and then, like, all the sub formats are there for you to choose to download. So it's not really that you're, like, specifically buying the 1080p SDR only version. You're like, I'm buying this movie, and then if I want to choose to download the 1080p SDR version and not the 4K HDR version, I can do that. Right. So that's what you would do, right? If you're like, I'm going to have a Strato M for my projection setup that I know is limited to 1080p SDR, then on that one, go ahead and download the 1080p SDR version, but you've still purchased the movie as a whole. So if you also have a Strato V in another room connected to a 4K OLED, then go ahead and get the 4K HDR version on that one.
There you go.
Yeah.
Some of the write-ups of the new Strato M player say that it offers reference quality 2K video output that surpasses standard Blu-ray quality. Is that pure marketing fluff, or does it actually improve upon Blu-ray quality in some way?
Well, there's the capability of having HDR.
Yeah, there's that.
which Blu-ray does not. So that's certainly... And then what they're talking about is the bit rate.
Sure.
Right? Because Kaleidoscape will talk about how they often use a slightly higher bit rate than what you'll find on the physical disc. If you look at the total file size, it's larger than what's on the physical disc. So because they get the mezzanine files from the studios and they do their own encoding, their own compression encoding, they tout that. They say, yep, we're willing to use a higher bit rate because we don't have a physical disc storage limit. Right. You know, if we want to go beyond 50 gigabytes for a 1080p version, if we want to go beyond 100 gigabytes for a 4K version, they can do that, and they do often do that. So yeah, they're not subject to the same hard limits as the physical discs, and that's what they're saying when it's beyond Blu-ray quality, because the bit rate is sometimes a little bit higher.
I would just don't listen to reviewers, except for me. When it comes down to. So the new SVS 5000 Revolution series certainly looks as though it takes the technological advancements that were introduced in the 17 Ultra series last year and just shrinks them down a little bit. Safe to assume that things like the dual monoblock amplifiers, with each monoblock powering one of the voice coils, of the single driver will eventually find its way down to SVS's 12-inch subwoofer models? I don't think so. No.
I don't know because
SVS has never been one to put technology into something where the technology is just there so that they can check a box. It is much more, hey, we needed to do this to get the performance that we wanted. So the question you're really asking is, do we think that SVS's 12-inch subwoofer models will ever need to have this new dual monoblock amplifier design thing? And my answer is probably not. At least not with I would see them putting 2 drivers into a box before I would see them.
Yeah, exactly. Like I could see an updated 3000 that has dual drivers, right? Because they got that 3000 micro that has the dual opposed drivers. I could see something like a dual opposed 10-inch. And then it would make sense to have a dual monoblock amplifier that's powering each of those drivers. So it's not like powering dual voice coils of a single driver, but it's powering 2 separate drivers. I could certainly see something like that coming down the pike. But yeah, when it's like a single 12-inch model, I don't see where they'd need to max out what a 15 amp wall outlet can do. That's where a lot of this is coming from. So I don't think that's a given. I don't think it's a given that it's going to trickle all the way down, because they're just going to get to the point where it's not necessary to have a dual monoblock amplifier setup, because the driver size is sort of, tapping out before you're going to actually need to fully maximize the power draw from the wall outlet.
So, and then compared to the 4000 series that the 5000 series was replacing, by SVS's own specs, it appears as though the PB4000 can actually play a couple of dB louder than the PB5000, but the PB5000 plays like 2 hertz lower. So if SVS does continue to trickle down this new driver technology and we end up with a 12-inch version that replaces the 2000 Pro series, is it actually going to sound different and improved in some way? Like if you've determined based on your room size and volume and area of your room that the 12-inch SVS model meets your room's requirements, will a PB2000 Pro sound any different from a future 12-inch Revolution subwoofer that with dual voice coils and dual monoblock amplification? I would venture to say that if you get a 12 NSD and put it into the room with the PB 2000 Pro series, you're not going to go, this one sounds better. It's going to sound the same. I truly believe that.
Try to blind pick them apart. Good luck.
It's just every person out there is like, this subwoofer crushes the other one, is lying on some level. either lying to themselves and then passing it on to you, or they're just straight up lying. Because there is, other than having the sub be too small for the space and having it distort in some way, the SVS has always been going for the exact same performance. It's not like they're going, now we're putting a DSP hump in this, or we're doing this, or we're doing that. Yes, it's playing lower, but
you can do that. You can do that manually with the built-in parametric EQ. If you want to put your own hump in, you can.
To me, the only reason to have the DSP control on this is not to give it to you. It's for them to ensure that subwoofer, they can control the output of it so that it is flat at different volume levels.
Linear anechoic response.
Yeah. That's the only reason it's there. So if we're going for flat response, is it, even if it were a little flatter, would it be so much flatter that you would notice a difference? And I think the answer is no, not in the anechoic chamber, not in a room that was at all treated, and even in a room that wasn't treated, because I think that it would be exciting the same modes everywhere. So as long as they were co-located, I just don't see that you're going to hear a difference. So the answer is no to all of your questions, I think.
So, I mean, I do think, if I want to make a little bit of an out there prediction, I kind of think that you might see, like, maybe they'll call it a 3500 series or something like that, that I think might be predominantly dual driver. Because to me, that's what would make sense, right? They stick with that dual monoblock amplifier platform that they developed. But like I say, once you're down to the smaller driver sizes and you're not actually taxing the wall outlet, it would make sense to use that for dual drivers. So I'm like, okay, you've already got the 3000 micro. You've already got the dual 9-inch driver in-wall 3000 model. So I'm like, okay, so like a 3500 series, maybe that becomes like the 13-inch dual driver type of thing or something like that. I could see that making sense. And then like a 2500 series, I definitely see the DSP engine trickling down because I think they're just going to make that universal across the whole lineup. But at that point, I don't think you need the dual monoblocks or unless they decide that everything all the way down to the 1000 series is going to be dual driver now or something.
And I could actually see that happening too, to a certain,
that's not out of the question,
to a certain extent, because they've got the they've already built the amp. So why not use it? To a certain extent. I mean, and I'm sure it's scalable on some level as well. It doesn't have to be as physically large, or I don't know how large it is. It might be very small. And they could start shoving it into different boxes. And then, like Rob says, dual drivers, I think it is more likely at the 12-inch driver size and lower if they ever go down to a 10 again. I could see that. I could see that happening. I do like the idea, to be honest with you, of SVS's next iteration of subwoofers going for dual drivers, like opposed as they have in their 3000 series, and starting to make their subwoofers at the lower price points and the smaller output levels just smaller, physically smaller because of it. Yeah, I think that's a phenomenal idea that would help sell more subs because, frankly, lower price points, smaller smaller physical subwoofers sell better. They just do because that's what people are looking for. Once you get into the I need a big sub for my big room, people are they're like, they either have bought in, they've done enough research to understand that they need a physically large sub, or they're never going to understand it, and they're just looking for the smallest sub possible, and there they go. Bob in the Philippines. Bob noticed the source level setting that can be adjusted for each individual input of Esperance's receiver. The description says that it's there so that you can even out the volume level between two or more separate devices. But he's found that just using a single input device, the volume level from service to service can vary a lot. So is that setting even useful? And furthermore, when he thinks back to his days working in car audio, messing around with the input signal level could often lead to either distortion or just overall poor sound quality. So what is that source level setting actually doing to the signal? Is it only affecting the audio portion, or if it's an HDMI connection, does it mess with the video signal too? And what happens under the hood if you use this feature? So the idea here is, for those of you that have noticed that when your Apple TV 4K is just universally louder than or softer than your Blu-ray player or your Ultra HD Blu-ray player, you can use this to adjust that volume levels, out of the box. Or you can do what the rest of the world does and says, oh, I'm putting in, like what I used to do with the Apple TV 4K. Oh, it's YouTube. I'm lowering the volume by 20 dB. That YouTube app would just absolutely crush everything. So
this is a change in the way we commonly use things now because it is so much streaming, and so we're using one device but using multiple different services, and then across different services, or even within the same service. But
to Blu-ray player let's even go back even farther. Cable box, DVD player, VCR. The volume, the average volume level out of each one of those boxes was quite a bit different. So you might use this to sort of get you so that you didn't have to run for the remote every time that you switch to source.
Yeah, so I don't say it's totally useless, because sometimes you do still have a single device that's just always louder or always quieter than everything else you ever use. So I don't mind having the source level. And all it is an attenuator. Yeah. It just takes the whatever the loudest one is, it quiets it down a little bit. That's all it does.
So it was 8 years ago now that he got his SVS speakers. He knew even back then that putting the center speaker within the cabinet wasn't exactly ideal, but that's where it needed to go. For aesthetic reasons, the front of the center speaker was recessed 1 inch from the front plane of the cabinet, leaving 9 inches of space behind the speaker. He lined that space with closed cell foam to lessen any reverberations, and then he left it alone and just enjoyed the system. But last month, when he got his new Marantz receiver, he pulled the center speaker out of the cabinet to give it a good cleaning before making the new connections. And this time, when he put it back, he positioned it so that the front of the speaker is flush with the front plane of the cabinet. He was shocked at the difference in the sound. His whole front sound stage changed, and for the first time that he can recall, all 3 of his front speakers sounded like they were properly in tune with each other. So without question, he likes the results, but of course there was more than one variable changed in this case. There's a new receiver, a new run of Odyssey, the changing of the speaker positions within the cabinet, maybe pulling the speaker 1 inch forward fixed the time alignment? No, it did not. That was not it. Out of all the things you've said, that is definitely not the thing. So what do we think? Could recessing the speaker just 1 inch into the cabinet really have made that much of a difference? Or is there more than just that at play here? It could be more, but I think recessing the speaker it can make a very big difference. And if you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't know how that could be, put your phone on, like play some music out of your phone. And like if you have a phone like mine, I think most phones are this way now, the speakers are on the bottom. Okay. Sure. So just hold the phone in front of you, like you're facing it at arm's length. Okay. Just so your arm with your hand on the back of your phone, towards the top. Okay. Now take your hand after a second of listening and then cup your hand around the bottom of the phone where the speaker is. Does that change? And even if it's only over, your hand's only an inch below where those speakers are, those drivers are at the bottom of your phone, do you hear a significant difference in your phone? I'm actually acting this out to myself in a room where it cannot be seen by you.
I'm envisioning
but
it.
You see, just try it and tell me that it doesn't sound significantly different, louder, the tenor of the music is different, everything is different. Could recessing that speaker have made that big of a difference? The answer is definitively yes, it could have, just that alone.
Yep. And that's why we've always harped on, like, even when it's on the top, right? Like, it's not within a shelf. It's like just sitting on the top of the TV stand. We see all the images, right? All the marketing images, they always have the sound bar that's like pushed right back against the wall with the whole front ledge of the TV stand in front of it. You see the center speaker images and they're pushed back. And we're like, no, bring it forward so that it's at the very least flush with the front. If not, the front face of the speaker is slightly in front of the front edge to get away from any of that diffraction that might be happening from the sound waves hitting those other surfaces and bouncing and eddying and spinning and diffracting off in various directions. It can change the timbre of the sound, and you'll notice it because it's the treble frequencies that are doing it. That's what changes the tone and the timbre of the sound. So yeah, absolutely, the recessing was probably the most. I also wouldn't have used closed cell foam because closed cell foam doesn't really do much acoustically. You want the soft, squishy stuff. Back there, but that would have less of an impact than the recessing. I think that is the lion's share of what happened here. The recessing.
Pull it forward. That's
it.
Yeah. So just a bit of a rant. He had a Denon receiver before. Now he has a Marantz. In both cases, if you go to change the individual speaker trim levels, you can do so in increments of half a decibel at a time. That's fine. Call it fine tuning. But then the master volume also goes up and down a half a decibel at a time with each click. Why? Isn't 1 decibel literally supposed to be the smallest SPL change that we can reliably detect? Why go in half decibel steps? Want to change the volume by 10 dB? That's 20 clicks up or down. And by pressing it and holding the volume up or down is not a solution because, at least in the case of the Marantz and Denon, it ramps the speed of the change so it ends up going way too far. So to Denon and Marantz, with all the other settings that you offer, could you push an update that lets us choose the dB increments when we're changing the volume?
That does seem like the sort of thing that should be possible in software at some point, and I kind of hear you. I mean, the half decibel changes are absolutely to placate and mollify the audiophile crowd that is like, well, I can hear a
you
half
have lead
decibel
ears,
difference.
I have golden ears. I can hear a 1/4 dB difference.
The definition of a decibel is that it's the smallest reliably detectable change, but I'm not a normal human being. I'm an audiophile. I can hear a 0.1 dB difference because I am that much better than everybody else. So yes, they're not even satisfied with the half decibel changes. They want a 0.1 dB change at a time every time you click the volume button. But yeah, why not? Why not let them choose that? Why not make that a software setting change where you're like, yeah, when I click the volume up or down button, how much does it go? 0.1 of a dB. Or, hey, change it 5 dB at a time because that's what I actually care about. Yeah, I don't mind that suggestion at all. I think that'd be a great thing for them
Last
to do.
question, Mark. Mark has heard us recommend damping and decoupling devices for speakers and subs. We seem to be in favor of sound isolation that allows the thing that's making the sound to still move a little, but without transferring that motion into the floor or the stand or the table or whatever it is. But all of his speakers, speaker stands, and equipment racks have always come with spikes. They pierce the carpet if you have it, and that means they very much couple directly to the floor, right? So could we please explain to him why all of these companies and all of these different pieces of equipment include spikes when we say to never use them and to, in fact, do the exact opposite and put something like rubber feet or foam or some other squishy thing under everything that makes sound? Let me tell you, sir, a tale of a podcaster who used to talk about decoupling and spikes in the same sentence, and that person was me. Okay? Because that's what we used to call it as a society of or a community of audio people. We would call spiking something decoupling it.
Sure, because the flat surface on the bottom is no longer actually touching the floor.
And because it's just these little pinpoints,
you've minimized the surface contact.
So that was
minimized.
That was called decoupling back then. And then scientists said, "What the heck are you talking about? Yeah, idiots." And then Rob,
because we are talking about pressure.
Rob started texting me or emailing me and saying, "Stop saying it. You're wrong." And then I said, "Shut up. You're not the boss of me. It's my podcast." And then he wouldn't shut up. And then eventually I listened to him and listened to the scientist and figured it out and went, "Oh, he's right. They're all right."
Yeah, we are talking about pressure, which we can measure in, say, pounds per square inch.
Yes.
And, spikes have a very, very small square inches that is in contact with the floor, but there are. There is a figure. It is not zero. It is not a mathematical point, no matter how sharp you make that spike. There is physical contact, and so now you have placed the same amount of pressure into many, many fewer square inches. It is many, many more pounds per square inch that is now in contact. And I always just make the analogy of if anybody has a pet, you got a cat or a dog, you know that when they're curled up, lying down in your lap, you're totally comfortable. Maybe you get a little overly warm with them there, but you're totally comfortable. But when they stand up, just their 4 little paws on your lap, they don't even have to be that heavy of a cat or a dog. It's like that can suddenly get painful. Now, the cat or the dog, they didn't get any heavier. It's the same amount of downward pressure, but it is now all focused into their 4 little paws as opposed to spread around their entire curled up body, pounds per square inch. It's the exact same thing that's going on there. Why do all these companies, speaker companies, platform companies, equipment, speaker stands, all of these audiophiles, man?
Yes. Because it looks cool.
Away. If it's got to be spikes. They're used to spikes.
Just think about this. How many people own or want to own muscle cars? Okay? And why? They do or they want to because they saw them when they were kids or they saw them when they were young and they fell in love with them and they want to experience that. They want to have it. They think it looks cool. So I would highly recommend that whenever you see something and you're just like, oh man, I've always wanted one of those. Just the minute you say something like that to yourself, you should also say, but why? But why? But why? But why do I always want them? And now that I am an adult with adult money, should I still want it? Or should I now realize that, yes, I thought Jeep Wranglers were cool when I was in high school or maybe a little bit younger and I always wanted one. But now that I have the option of buying one, should I, or do I want to actually drive a vehicle and not just keep driving it back and forth to the mechanics? So you decide.
Now, I will say this, like for something that is acting as a platform, right? An equipment stand, a speaker stand, I do comprehend, like, particularly if there's going to be sitting on top of a carpet, right? So you got a nice thick carpet pad and a nice thick carpet, and you're going to put a speaker stand on there. And it's just like, just from a physical stability standpoint, does it feel more secure to have these long, thin spikes that pierce through that carpet and pad, connect the speaker stand to the subfloor below, and then when you just put your hand on it and try to shake it, like, oh, that just feels more stable, right? Or without it, it wobbles. It's like, okay, I get that. And sometimes I don't even mind that, right? If I've got a really thick carpet situation, we're just sitting the flat base of a speaker stand on it. I'm like, physically, I'm putting a big, tall, heavy monitor on here, and it's like, I don't really want to see it wobble, like just somebody walking by on the carpet can make it wobble. Like, I might want spikes on the speaker stand bottom, and then I will decouple in between the top of the speaker stand and the bottom of the speaker itself.
You could do that, yeah.
I still want, yeah.
You could actually buy like those plinths that they put turntables on, because often those come with spikes as well. And you could put that on the ground, push it through the carpet with the spikes and everything, and hopefully they have some sort of leveling. And then you put your floor standing speaker on top of that. And that would also be a solution. With the decoupler.
The actual decoupling, the damping thing in between the top of the plinth and the bottom of the speaker. So why are we in favor of damping as opposed to spiking? It's like those vibrations are happening in there. When that speaker was measured in an anechoic chamber, it's like suspended. Basically, it's kind of like floating. It's not touching any surfaces. And if what we're wanting is to get to that neutral response where the speaker itself is not coloring any of the sound, the physical vibration, we don't want that getting transferred into whatever it's standing on, because then that thing starts making sympathetic vibrations, and that was never measured. We don't know what those sympathetic vibrations are actually going to be. It's going to change depending on the material that the speaker is standing on, or the material of the speaker stand, or the equipment stand, whatever it might be. It's a variable that isn't accounted for in any of the measurements. We can't predict what that's going to be. So we're like, okay, let's just isolate the vibrating thing itself. Let's essentially suspend it again. We put it on a damping platform. Now, at least we have eliminated some of that unknown variable. Now we know whatever sound is coming out of that speaker, it's coming out of the speaker alone. The vibrations are contained to the speaker. It's not physically transferring into anything else that it's touching. So that's our basic, philosophy of why we want to do it that way instead of physically coupling things. But people haven't had that experience of, you take the tower speaker, you leave it on the flat bottom, you put it on top of your carpet, and you listen to it that way, and then you put the spikes on and you put it down there and you're like, well, now I can feel the bass in my feet. Surely that's better, right? It's like, no, you can feel the bass in your feet because you're physically shaking the floorboards underneath the carpet now, because you've spiked that connection down there and the vibrations are physically transferring. So we're like, nope, separate that, let the speaker be itself. Now it's closer to its anechoic measurements.
All right, who do we have left?
We have on our list quite a few: Sasi, Nelson, Graham, and Carrie. I think that's all of them. Yep, that's what's on the list.
All right, while I was doing this podcast, I did get access to my Tom at AVRant email address, so nice. I don't know that I can respond to anybody, but I can receive them now. We want to thank our listeners of the week. We want to thank Jefferson for going to avrant.com and clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link and sending us a PayPal donation, as well as our 133 patrons over at patreon.com.
That is right, Jefferson. Thank you very much for that PayPal donation. And patreon.com/AVRant podcast is where you can go to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. So a big thanks to our 133 patrons over there.
Thank Cody for offering to convert my CAD file, as well as Jefferson for giving me permission to use his photos on AV Gadgets.
Yeah, Cody, that was very nice of you. That's a very nice offer that you made, so thank you for that. And Jefferson, thank you for the permission to use your photos on avgadgets.com.
We also got notes of gratitude from Gurinder, Henry, Jefferson, Mark, Nelson, Sasi, and Tom. Thank you for thanking us.
Yeah, I'll say the names one more time. Gurinder, Henry, Jefferson, Mark, Nelson, Sasi, and Tom. Thank you all very much for your notes of gratitude and encouragement. We really appreciate them. And a big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
For AVRant, well, if you want to get your question answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. For AVRant, I'm Tom Andrew.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.